7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and thank you for joining me for episode 11 of the Write or Flight podcast. We've been consistent here every week since the channel rebrand, not even taking breaks for the holidays, and I hope you've all been enjoying this stream as much as I have, especially when we started doing the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment. I started to fall in love with this stream. It's just a lot of fun hanging out with all of you guys, venting about the space news that nobody else in my sphere really cares about. And, you know, I'm acquiring a new chat. A lot of these newcomers who have been coming in the last month have been really interesting people that I love discussing things with. So I hope you all enjoyed this stream today. Whether or not you're watching on the YouTube or Kick side, welcome in. I already see Legatus Legionus, the bot supreme, doing the Lord's work on YouTube and Kick. It's great to have you here, my friend. And you ask, so are we going back to your original soundboard today? So we are not using the one that I've been having issues with the last few weeks. We are actually on a new setup. I was able to transition to something else, and hopefully it sounds good. Still playing around with the settings, but overall, I think it's already just an improvement on its own. So please let me know how the audio quality is today as we dive into some of the topic. So yeah, today we actually have a perfect balance of science and fiction today. We have a couple pieces of news surrounding SpaceX and Artemis 2. I have a little bit to talk about with Tomb Raider, and of course, the Project Hail Mary trailer came out yesterday. I was wanting to wait till today to get my fresh live reaction to it, but I couldn't wait. I watched it yesterday, and I absolutely loved it. I'm still going to break it down with all of you guys, but I broke down and watched it on my own. Project Hail Mary, the book, is one of my favorite books already. I really enjoyed the Martian movie, really enjoyed the Martian book, but there were issues with it. You could tell that he was a little bit early on, Andy Weir, in his writing days. All of those pieces of criticism that I had for the Martian evolved and improved in Project Hail Mary, and I can't wait for people to see Project Hail Mary and get invested in the story, because not everyone is a book reader like myself, but it's an incredible story, and hopefully more people check out the book because of the movie. Everything I'm hearing about the movie has me excited, and I'm going to break down some of those things when we get to that. But how is everyone doing out there in the chats? I imagine we're going to get a bit of a raid, a bump in viewership in a few minutes here when Adam, the Renaissance Nerd, finishes up the daily dive and raids us. But until then, it's great to have you all here. I hope everyone's having a wonderful, wonderful Monday afternoon. And with that, let's dive into the first piece of news, which is an update on the status of Artemis 2. Hail Juan, welcome in on the YouTube side. So Artemis 2, it went through a wet dress rehearsal last week, and they pushed back the launch. We knew it wasn't going to take place on the 6th or the 8th like was originally hoped. That was the first launch window. There were rumors that February 11th would be the next launch window, but now we have confirmation that Artemis 2 will not launch until March, and we actually have the reason why it was delayed. So during the wet dress rehearsal, when they went through everything, fueled it up, tested out firing the rockets, went through the countdown, all of that, they found a hydrogen leak, and since then they have fixed the 2 seals that caused the hydrogen leak. So this is why testing out things is very important. I'm a big advocate of failure teaches as much as success. So with the SpaceX rockets, how they crashed for years on end, it seemed like it wasn't going anywhere. It's because of those crashes and the things that SpaceX learned that we have the incredible rockets, the reusable rockets that we do today. So testing things, trying things out, making sure everything's up and running is a good thing in my opinion. And I'm glad they went through this because we don't want a repeat of Apollo 1 or the Challenger where we lose astronauts. We never want that to happen again. It's unfortunately bound to happen because space is such a dangerous place, but we want to avoid it. So this is an excellent reason for the Artemis 2 launch to be pushed back. I know some people were coming up with wild conspiracy theories for why Artemis 2 was launched, like, oh, space is fake and they didn't have their fakery set up in time, and wild explanations like that. No, a hydrogen leak is something that you can't really find out about ahead of time. That's why they do these wet dress rehearsals, and they had to fix it. It's not a crazy concept, but of course people are going to read in some conspiracy explanation for it, dive into whatever obscure piece of nonsense they can find. But they go on to say, March is the next potential launch opportunity. NASA will set a targeted launch date after completing a successful wet dress rehearsal test and reviewing the data. So they're going to try another wet dress rehearsal in another few weeks. Hopefully everything goes well there, and if it does, we'll be launching in March. I'm still looking forward to it. This is a good reason to delay. This isn't a sign of mismanagement or anything like that. Artemis 2 is still moving forward. They had launch dates from the beginning of February to the end of April. So we're still in their current projections for the launch. This isn't a massive issue like some people are reading into it. This isn't sign of conspiracy. This isn't sign of mismanagement. Yes, the Artemis program has been mismanaged, in my opinion, over the last few years. This launch, Artemis 2, was supposed to go initially in 2022, I believe. So they're behind schedule massively. But in the last year, it seems like they really pulled things together and started moving forward. I've been really happy with the way that they've been handling everything, managing everything for the last year. And this is a continuation of that. So we'll stay tuned to the news. I'll update you as news comes in to see when the launch of Artemis 2 will actually take place. Yeah, I can't believe that there are legitimately people who thought the delay of a rocket launch was the sign of a conspiracy. If nothing else, these rockets aren't designed for cold weather on Earth. That's one reason why they choose locations like Florida to launch, because it's warmer, a little bit less variety in weather, maintaining stability. We just had a cold front. Here in Orlando, it got down to 35 degrees at one point. That is well below what these rockets are designed to do, so I'm not surprised something went wrong. I initially thought it was just a weather delay, maybe had something to do with that, but there's no reason to read in conspiracy when there were, prior to this announcement, multiple legitimate explanations for the delay, especially since this is still the launch window. They're not delaying outside the launch window. They're actually meeting in the middle if it's in March somewhere. So there are a lot of science deniers, a lot of space deniers who will try to make a conspiracy out of everything. And once again, it's easy to disprove them. A hydrogen leak is a very easy thing that's not complicated. But, you know, they're desperate to prove the Earth is flat or stuff like that, that they'll reach for whatever straws they can find. But looks like we're getting a few more people in. Welcome in, everybody. So as a reminder, at the end of the stream, we're going to do the chat choose your own adventure segment of the stream, where with a combination of super chats and dice rolls, we'll craft short story outlines together, kind of a Mad Libs style, improving it. If you are interested in affecting the genre, the setting, anything like that, highest super chat starting on $1 can override any dice roll and direct the plot of the story. Highest super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist at any point. So I can be in the middle of writing the outline and you're like, hey, I want a kaiju monster to burst out from a space portal and kill everyone. I'm going to have to try to make that work. So highest super chat starting at $5 can introduce any twist like that. If we reach $100 on this stream in super chat revenue overall, and kick subscriptions count as well, and stream elements donations, that link is pinned on the YouTube side, we'll schedule a separate stream called The Story Forge, where I'll actually write out the short story, and my incredible wife will draw some exclusive artwork for it. Last week, we hit the threshold necessary to do Story Forge. We got through the first chapter on Story Forge, and I have since finished the story. So Zombie Riggers is currently available to all YouTube members. If you join on the YouTube side, you'll be giving a Google Drive link that'll get you access to Zombie Riggers and the previous Story Forge stories as well. The artwork for Zombie Riggers will be up in the next couple days, so stay tuned to that as well. Hail and welcome in, Judas. It's great to have you here, my friend. You're the reason we were able to do Story Forge last week, so the story that you helped create is available now for YouTube members. I hope you check it out and enjoy how it turned out, because I'm very proud of how it turned out. It's very much a B movie, just with the plot, the concepts of it, the wildness of oil zombies and whatnot. But I think I rode that line very well with making it believable escapism that's just dumb fun. I hope you all enjoy it if you check it out. But yeah, we've already gone through the Artemis 2's delay, got a little bit more information about that. It was a hydrogen leak, looking for a March date. The next topic I have is a little bit more controversial, though. I know a lot of people in the sphere have very different opinions, very different reactions than I did to this news. So I'm expecting a little bit of disagreement in the chat, and that's fine. No one has to agree with me. No one's obligated to do so. But I have strong enough feelings on this that I felt like I needed to share them. What we're talking about is the upcoming Tomb Raider show from Amazon and some behind-the-scenes photos that were released this week. A few days ago, we got this behind-the-scenes footage of Sophie Turner in the role of Lara Croft on Amazon's Tomb Raider show. Now, do I believe the show is going to be good? Just starting off before we dive into these behind-the-scenes. Absolutely not. It is written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I wouldn't even trust to write her own diary. There are going to be a million things to be upset about with this show. There are going to be plenty of things to criticize and tear apart. And I don't believe this released image is one of them. About a month ago, we got a promotional image of Sophie Turner in the role, where she's wearing a very traditional Lara Croft outfit, very sensual, a lot of exposed skin, and she looks like Lara Croft far more than I expected. So I gave the movie props for that. However, when this image came out, a lot of people took it to mean that that promotional image was a bait and switch for the Gooners, and this is what she was actually going to look like. I have problems with that for a couple reasons. One, Lara Croft has looked like this before. I will show some images of that as well. But the most important thing, why I believe this is nothing to be freaked out about, is look how cold it is. It is raining. It is sleeting. If we look at some of these other images, you see crew members bundled up. This is clearly a cold environment. Lara Croft has always been able to have cold variants of her outfits, and this just looks like a cold variant. This is a functional one, keeping with most of her color scheme. It's still very feminine, at least as much as an exploratory outfit can look. So I have nothing against this outfit. It's practical, and she's going to be in environments where practicality is very, very important. I have it here pulled up as well. She's had cold weather variants as well. As a disclaimer, I am not a massive Tomb Raider fan. I've only really played the reboot trilogy, so this isn't coming from the perspective of an expert. I just realized you can't wear that skimpy outfit everywhere. I want that skimpy outfit to be the primary one, absolutely. And if they bait and switch with something like this for the majority of the film, I will criticize it. This show is going to be bad on so many levels. We're going to have a million things to criticize. We don't need to make up reasons to be upset about it. And I think this is an example of a lot of people in this sphere trying to be upset, trying to rage bait, trying to get into the algorithm, making something out of nothing. Right now, we have nothing. Making something out of nothing is not something I'm ever willing to do. I don't know how you all think about this. If cold weather variants are justifiable in your opinion, I don't think the show is going to be good. I think it's going to be absolutely terrible, but maybe some of you are looking forward to it. So please let me know how you feel about this. I had to just get my thoughts out on it. I've just been seeing so many people freak out like this is the end of the world, that it's guaranteed the show will be bad because of these images. I think it's a massive nothing burger, however. Welcome in the raid from Adam the Renaissance Nerd's Daily Dive. I hope you all had an enjoyable stream over there with Adam. He was getting quite impassioned with the Super Bowl stuff surrounding Mandalorian and Grogu. I was watching for a bit, and yeah, that Mandalorian and Grogu trailer looks terrible. I'm glad I'm not a massive Star Wars fan. I enjoy Star Wars, watch the original 6 movies, and enjoy them. Right now I'm playing a Star Wars game, Star Wars Genesis, but it's not one of my primary franchises in the least. Dash says the cold weather gear isn't helping her. Well, what do you mean by that? The cold weather gear isn't helping her? It's clearly a sweater. In one of the images you see, the sweater goes down. It's long sleeve. It's cold. The crew members are bundled up as well. So what do you mean it's not helping her? I imagine it's more warm than the promotional image. I wouldn't want to be dressed in that promotional image outfit in an environment like that. If they bait and switch, I'm going to be right there with everybody else saying, oh yeah, you use that promotional image to make people get excited for it, and then you're going to use it once, maybe as an end of show teaser or something like that. I'm going to be criticizing that. But I don't agree with people who make something out of nothing, who are taking this clearly explainable, justifiable set of images and acting like that determines that the whole show is going to be terrible. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the sign that the show is going to be terrible. And once we get a trailer, once we get more about the story, some other casting announcements, we can react to that. That's real news to react to, real meat to dive into to predict the quality of the show. These images, I don't feel, are in any way, shape, or form predictive. They're not doing anything for appeal. Sure, you can argue with maybe releasing better promotional material. I don't know if these are leaked photos or if these were released by the studio itself. I believe it's Amazon MGM. It's at least Amazon. But if they release these images themselves, they could have released better images to promote it. If they're leaks, you can't do anything about that. That is what it is. You just have to respond accordingly. They could have done better, though, if it was intentional. I can absolutely agree with that. It should have been impossible to make her look less endowed. Again, it's cold weather. You bundle up tightly, so I'm fine with her tits looking more restrained under those circumstances. I feel like that outfit is still feminine and practical, which makes a lot of sense to me. But let's see. Yeah, we have some people cycling in. Hope everyone's doing well. Did anybody watch the Super Bowl? Was anybody invested in that? I haven't seen a single frame of the Super Bowl, with the exception of part of Bad Bunny's halftime show, which I didn't watch on purpose, just scrolling through Twitter, saw it for a couple frames. I think I know the score. I think the Seahawks won pretty handily, but the Patriots rallied near the end and got a touchdown, if I heard correctly. But I was not following the game in any way, shape, or form. I was streaming during it, of course, but afterwards I didn't look up anything. Hopefully those who were looking forward to it enjoyed the game. I do hope that those invested in the NFL got a good product from them yesterday, whether or not you enjoyed the halftime show. The halftime show is virtually irrelevant, in my opinion, to the quality of the game. From what I hear, though, it wasn't good, the halftime show. All right, we can move on to the next topic. Today's going to be a lot shorter of a rider flight just because there's a lot of things going on right now. I got a little bit of a contractor gig to make a little bit money right now, so I've got some of that work to do later on. Very exciting stuff. Glad to be back in the fold working with those people, but let's move on. This one is going to be very quick and more hypothetical than news-based necessarily. Here from Ground News, we find out that SpaceX is shifting their focus to establishing a moon city within 10 years. So this is changing Elon Musk's plan for the last few years, he's been very adamant that he doesn't care about the moon, that he's just going to go straight to Mars and try to set up a colony there as soon as possible. However, recently we found out that he's going to be aiding the Artemis program with the Artemis 3 landing that's going to be going on in the next few years. So he was transitioning to help out with the moon. It seems like that transition is going even farther here, with him wanting to make his own bases on the moon. I'm conflicted about this. From a logical standpoint, I actually agree with Artemis's initial project plan, where making moon bases as a first step to getting to Mars makes a lot of sense. If for training purposes, if nothing else, it's a hazardous environment with similar conditions to the Mars, at least compared to Earth. The moon surface versus the Martian surface is vastly different. There is actually atmosphere on Mars where there isn't on the moon, and heat conditions and everything like that. So they are different, but they are hazardous environments that still require airtight cities, maybe underground cities, stuff like that. There's a lot of same solutions solve different problems in those two different environments. So it makes a lot of sense, helps us refine our equipment where the astronauts will be within rescuable range. We can get people to the moon a lot quicker than we can to Mars, with the launch windows to Mars only being every 24 months. Right now, with the current technology we have, we can only go to Mars once every 24-ish months because of how the orbits align. However, with the moon, it happens a lot more regularly. I believe Elon Musk even says here that he'd want launches to the moon every 10 days versus every 26 months, enabling faster iteration and prioritization of the moon. It makes a lot of sense. However, my conflict is just the dreamer in me. The idea of going somewhere new, going to Mars, is such a romantic idea, an inspiring idea. So I liked how they were diverging. Artemis was focusing on the practical, focusing on colonizing the moon and everything like that, while Elon was looking farther. So it was a two-pronged approach. I liked that idea. However, the practicality of it does lean towards the moon being the better option for right now. That's where my conflict comes in. I'd love to say that we have people on the moon in the next 10 years. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. And of course, I expected delays with SpaceX's plan. I never believed his initial launch windows, his plan to get people on Mars. This is just supporting those initial fears that a lot of people had about his rather ambitious plan to set up colonies on Mars. I don't know how you guys feel about this. I think it makes sense. This is the practical choice, but it's not the choice that I expected from Elon Musk. He's always pushing things a step farther, taking that risk. Reusable rockets was deemed to be impossible for so long, and yet he eventually achieved it. He reaches for the stars and eventually achieves them. I was hoping that he'd do that with Mars, but it looks like he's going to still do something very impressive, trying to establish a human presence, a permanent presence on the moon before going on to Mars. We're still going to be an interplanetary species within my lifetime, most likely because of Elon Musk. So he's still reaching for the stars, just not quite as far as I hoped he would. The Weasel says it was apathy, the Super Bowl, the whole thing was boring. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing from a lot of people, is it was just entirely uninteresting. I haven't been invested in sports really ever in my life. I played sports and I was invested in the sports that I was playing, but I never really watched sports. That was never my thing. Dash says, I think the return trip from Mars is not going to even be a promise, eggs and omelet situation. It is possible to return from Mars. You just have to do the orbital alignment, have enough fuel and everything like that. That's why they're talking about trying to manufacture fuel on Mars. That's what we see in The Martian, actually. They're able to extract what they need from the atmosphere and over a long period of time get enough for escape velocity from Mars, perform a slingshot, and head back to Earth. So it's a lot more difficult to come back, and I would volunteer for a one-way trip. And I know I'm not the only person who would volunteer for a one-way trip. And it might be initially absolutely a one-way trip while technology advances, but it is entirely within the realm of current science to get what we need to come back. So there will eventually be a return journey aspect of it, and that could be why he's switching over to the moon, is to allow that technology for the return trip to be developed enough to make it feasible. So that could absolutely be an explanation for the change in priorities. But in the end, I think we'll be able to go back and forth. It's not going to be practical. There's going to be so much money involved going back and forth, but we'll get there in the end. Judith says, I think the moon has great mining opportunities as well, so maybe that could fund further exploration. That's a great point as well. One of the main reasons why the two main reasons why the Apollo missions ended and we stopped going to the moon was, what was the point? With what the technology was at the era, all that they could really do was land, maybe drive around a little bit, and pick up moon rocks on the surface. They didn't have the capacity to bring mining equipment or anything like that to take advantage of the mineral resources on the moon. So why are we going back? We already have enough moon rocks that they're still being divvied out to universities around the world today. We haven't run out or anything like that. So we have plenty of moon rocks. We don't need more necessarily. And then, of course, after the Apollo missions, the space race was won. The budget for NASA just dove. If you look at a graph for NASA's budget during the Apollo missions to after, it's halved. It is horrifying how much it gets cut. So they transitioned into the space shuttle program, which was an incredible program that pushed our space travel capabilities immensely. So the space shuttle program is not just a financial logical step, but an exploratory logical step, moving on from the moon to something a little bit more in our orbit. And of course, leading to the International Space Station, which has been so very important to our understanding of space and the long-term exposure of it on the human psyche and the human body. But now we have the technology that we might be able to get mining equipment to the moon and assemble it. We have the technology to build moon bases, and we're going to be able to study the long-term effects of microgravity more so on the moon versus, what they experience in the International Space Station, and have a lot more resources there for those continued tests, studying, mining, everything like that. So the moon makes a lot of sense. It is the correct decision in my layman's opinion. I just, I was swept up in the vision of getting to Mars. I was swept up in Elon's projections, hoping that we would get there. Still with enough caveats to know that it would get delayed once or twice, but we were going to get there eventually. And that was so exciting to me. This is just pushing it back, though. We'll get there someday. We'll absolutely get there someday. But yeah, mining is an important thing to consider now that we have the technology to get mining equipment up there and operational. The Weasel says, I hope we don't start mining the moon. It's already drifting away naturally. I'd fear that removing the mass would accelerate that. That's not something we need to worry about a whole lot. The moon is, naturally going through its cycle. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Is everything in our solar system goes through cycles. The sun goes through periods of high activity and low activity, affecting its solar flare amount and everything like that. Our electromagnetic field has highs and lows. Our climate has highs and lows, like the medieval warming period and everything like that. And the moon is only currently in the position that it's in. It's been in many, many different positions, and us mining it will barely be scratching the surface for centuries to come. Just with our current capacity, we're going to have tiny moon bases with tiny pieces of mining equipment, and it would have to be really rare minerals to justify mining. And a lot of what the moon has isn't that rare. Most of what it has, we can do on Earth for a lot cheaper. So any mining that we do would be very targeted for rare minerals in such small quantities that it would take millennia of the level of chipping away to actively affect its orbit and cause it to drift away. Because the less mass it has, the less the gravitational pull between the Earth and the moon is. So removing massive amounts of its mass would cause it to drift away quicker. But I don't think humanity is currently, and for the foreseeable future, capable of the scale to actually affect something like that. Welcome in, Sam. It's great to have you here, my friend. We've already gone over the Artemis 2 news, explaining why they delayed the launch. It looks like it's going to take place in March as long as the next wet dress rehearsal goes well. Turns out there was a hydrogen leak when they did their wet dress rehearsal last week, and they've since fixed it, but they're adding more time into the countdown for further troubleshooting leeway. They're just fixing everything up. We're still within the launch window, though, from beginning of February to the end of April. So nothing to be concerned about. Nice that we're getting a little bit more information, however. I also briefly talked about the Tomb Raider costume. I think a lot of people are overreacting to those behind-the-scenes photos of Sophie Turner, especially because we see crew members in other shots dressed up very warmly. I think her costume's just a cold weather variant of her base outfit. Now, if that's what she's wearing through the majority of the movie, then we can have a discussion. But we don't have enough information to counteract the very justifiable explanation for why she's dressed the way she is in the behind the scenes images. The better argument is the one that was brought up by Dash, is if these were Amazon released images, there were much better images that they could have released for publicity purposes. If they're leaks, doesn't matter, but you can be smarter with your usage of promotional material than showing something like this. That's a much better argument in my mind, but right now we don't have enough to have strong opinions one way or another, and people are overreacting, in my opinion. Sam, they have to use electric mining because fuel don't burn. That's an excellent point as well. The generators or something like that would not be able to function if you're using a burning fuel. So electric mining, Elon is talking about wanting to use nuclear power on the moon, and NASA was as well. So nuclear reactors creating the electricity to fund to propel the mining equipment is most likely the way they would go about it. But nuclear power is something that I advocate for strongly. A lot of people get scared by a mythical version of Chernobyl and stuff like that, and movies show anything related to nuclear and radiation as mutation causing and cancer causing. And yes, in high enough doses, that's absolutely a problem. And there are horrible side effects to massive disasters like Chernobyl. But the front of nuclear power portrayed by Hollywood is entirely fabricated. A lot of people don't realize that we experience radiation every day of our lives, just existing. One of the most irradiated events that a normal human being can experience is flying in an airplane. You get massive amounts of radiation flying in an airplane. Bananas are radioactive. Radiation in and of itself is not this frightful, horrifying thing that leads to instant cancer and instant death. So managing nuclear power, which we're able to do, we have the technology. Nuclear power is incredibly safe right now and green, if that's a priority for you. And yeah, we're going to be able to use it on the moon very effectively. Hopefully we'll start using it on Earth very effectively, and that will mitigate a lot of our energy crisis that people are concerned about currently. The Weasel, one of these days, Jed, I'm going to throw a shoe at Jed for all the times he's passive-aggressively called me dumb. I didn't call you passive-aggressively dumb. I definitely did not intend it to come across that way. Not in the slightest, Weasel. I'm sorry it came across that way. But your comment on a large scale is a valuable one. If the moon decreases in enough mass, it will drift away quicker. Absolutely. I just don't think we're at the point where we have the scale for that. But that's not meant to call you dumb in any way, shape, or form. Not everyone is, in tune to the sphere as much as I try to be with the science and everything like that. And there's plenty of things that I don't know enough about that the chat corrects me on constantly. So not being an expert in everything isn't a problem. It's not at all. So I'm not trying to call you dumb, Weasel, not in the slightest, but you're welcome to throw a shoe at me. You're welcome to do that. Sam, nuclear is something the politicians won't go with. Yes, that is an important thing to consider as well. There's a lot of money in big oil and all these alternate energy stuff and solar, solar, that they're really going to push against it. And that's why so many times we have these discussions. I don't want to get into politics. That's one thing that I will avoid at all costs. Like, I'm not going to talk about the Epstein files on this channel or anything like that. The election, I'm going to avoid politics like the plague. But it's so hard not to at least point to politics sometimes. With pop culture being affected by politics for the last few years, a lot of left-wing figures affecting the way that Hollywood operates, for example, and in a more neutral sense, the way that politicians affect science with pharmaceutical lobbying, with lobbying from oil drillers and stuff like that, that it's hard not to talk about politics. And I hate that. I wish that science and politics and pop culture and politics could be entirely divorced. But that's not the world we live in. So whenever politics come up, I'm going to dance around it and not like tell you how to vote or anything like that, talk about my opinions on specific politicians, but neutral statements like, yeah, politicians are making nuclear energy very difficult to have widespread application. I feel like that's neutral enough that I'm covering my bases. But yeah, I hate that politics is affecting science so heavily. Hey, Dr. Rachel, welcome in. Hey, nerds. Dash says significant nuclear power is really heavy to send up to the moon, though. So heavy nuclear power, yes, but you can have decaying isotopes to the fuel things in small ways. NASA actually already has that. So that's still technically nuclear power. That's a good starting point. But you're right. To make full-scale nuclear reactors, that's going to be incredibly expensive, have to come up in shipments, in pieces. That's why Elon's plan of every 10 days launching something to the moon, if he can actually achieve that, nuclear reactors on the moon start to become practical because they're able to launch those things in small enough pieces. But yeah, getting the thrust capacity, the payload capacity to build nuclear reactors is either going to take a massive revolution in rocket capabilities, or you're going to have to launch constant rockets, which is another reason why the reusable rockets that Elon's doing are so important, because that starts to make 10-day launches to the moon feasible. So I think we'll get there eventually, but you're absolutely right. There is a weight concern. Dr. Rachel, don't take it personally, Weasel. He calls me dumb too. I don't call anyone dumb to their faces. I do it behind their backs like a polite human being. All right. Come on. Sam, that solar shit is useless. Solar, I think, is very useful in small things. Like if you have a small device, like a street lamp that operates on its own solar power, I think is a good idea. And even in houses, if you live in a good environment for it, like Arizona, for example, to have solar panels on your house to mitigate your electricity bill, it can be beneficial there. But widespread application is entirely worthless and useless. Just like you're saying, Sam, you'd have to make huge fields of solar panels to make a dent in the grid necessity. Like I think Elon Musk put the figure at, if you could solar panel the entirety of the Sahara Desert, you could equal the power requirements of Earth as it stands right now. But that would be a massive ecological disaster. Reflecting that much sunlight back into the atmosphere, that's when you're talking about global warming really becomes a thing and really becomes a problem, and devastatingly so. So if we ever get solar panels to the point that it's making a difference, they're causing the very problem that they're supposedly trying to solve. So yeah, solar panels in small quantities, great. Large quantities, entirely impractical. I agree. Weasel, not offended at all. He doesn't know he does it. I've done it too. It's not intentional, absolutely. And I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I'm calling you dumb. So the intent, I think, should be taken into account. Dash, Elon's solar roof tiles are cool. Yeah, Elon's really good at applying these different pieces of technology in practical ways. I think it's nice. I'm never going to drive an electric car, most likely, but if I do, he's made Teslas, and he's starting to make Teslas very viable options, very practical options. So I can at least respect him for that. Neuralink is the one piece that he's doing, and maybe AI, the XAI to a certain extent, that I'm a little bit concerned about his push for, but I'm willing to give him a chance because he's done so well in SpaceX and Tesla and everything like that. What he's doing with Neuralink, I'm worried about brain chips, but I like how he's focusing on disability right now. I'm all for brain chips when it helps disabled people be able to function in society, because I think that is an important thing. I don't believe that society should reshape itself for small pockets of disabled people. Individual people around them be polite, help out where they can, absolutely. But technology advancing to help them operate normally in society is something to be championed, to be supported. So I like how he's using Neuralink, even though I'm concerned about the concept of Neuralink. Sam, there'll probably be a war before the space stuff. At this rate, yeah, before we get to Mars, because Mars is still 15, 20 years away at the earliest, I'd say. The moon, I think by the end of this decade, we'll be back on the moon at least. We probably will have a permanent stay on the moon for another 10 years, but we'll absolutely be back by the end of this decade. So hopefully that happens before war breaks out, a mass war. Dash, somebody is going to do Neuralink and AI. It might as well be Elon. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's inevitable, and I do trust Elon more than the average person. I'm not an Elon defender. I'm not one of those people who thinks he's God or worships him or anything like that. I've been critical of a lot of what he said and done, but I do trust him more than nearly any other billionaire. He's the best that we got, and if he's the best we got, we're in a very good position. I do support him more often than I don't, but he is a controversial figure that pisses people off in a lot of different ways. ISAM will take the focus off of all the spaceship. Yeah, they'll take it off. I hope they don't. And being interplanetary is so important to us right now because I talk about this a lot. The Fermi paradox is something that I think about constantly in my written works and just in my day to day life. When we look up at the stars with the telescopes that we're able to have, we're able to look back at so much of the universe. 13.8 billion light years of the universe is visible to us, and we've seen zero evidence of alien life. Why is that? That's all the Fermi paradox is saying. Why haven't we seen them? There are legitimate reasons like, hey, with the speed of light, we're looking into the past. The farther we look out, the farther back in time we're looking. So an alien species may just not be visible to us yet until that light from their advancement reaches us. There are other more sinister explanations like the zoo theory. The great filter is one that I lean towards a lot, where in the evolution of a species, even just technologically evolution, if you want to talk about it from that perspective, there are hurdles that every species has to confront to advance. The invention of the wheel could be construed as a filter for our species. The invention of space travel, a filter, everything like that, that is an obstacle that has to be overcome. The great filter theorizes that there's a great filter, hence the name, that is preventing so many species from becoming interplanetary. We may have crossed it already, we may have it yet coming, but if we can become interplanetary and self-sustaining on other planets, Mars isn't going to be self-sustaining for decades and decades, probably even centuries to come. But if we can ever achieve that, where the human race is able to be self-sufficient on planets and moons other than Earth, that will help us survive the Great Filter, or even if that's war. Some people theorize that that is just war and conflict, but that will help us. So I'm a big advocate for becoming a planetary species, an interplanetary species, and hopefully someday an intersolar species, an interstellar species. But it's still a long ways off, obviously. I don't want wars, politics, and stuff like that to impede that advancement that is so essential to the future of our species. I fell behind a little bit. Weasel says the Tesla roof tiles are so ineffective, 72 watts compared to the full-size panels at 550 typically. The average amount for a household required is 15 to 25 panels for 6 to 10 watts. So yeah, they're not quite there yet, but they help. If you're going to use that space, might as well make it useful. Use that roof tile. So if you view it as a substitute, as a backup system, I think they're fairly efficient. But if you rely on them for all your charge, you're going to be screwed. But I think the advancement of that technology will progress in such a way that they might be useful someday. But you are correct. You cannot rely on those roof tiles in any way, shape, or form. Dash, Elon has good control of his companies too. That's better than some public ownership or board. Yes, what he says goes. And normally I'd be a little bit concerned about that depending on the person, but Elon has a proven track record of having his company and his people as his top priorities and the advancement of science as his top priority. So I trust him in that sense. Absolutely. Weasel, Dash is talking to the Weasel. Sam, there's a thing I've been working on with other people where we take time out of all or most subatomic formulas and they still work. Really? So there's a thing you've been working on with other people where we take time out of all or most subatomic formulas and they still work. Yeah, that's the thing with you're getting into quantum territory with quantum physics and stuff like that, and time works so weirdly down that small. Make you think that just for convenience, yeah, the time elements of those formulas probably help the normal person wrap their brains around them. But yeah, time is such a flexible concept and it's fascinating to me. Relativity fascinates me to a huge degree. And the way that it affects, quantum physics is absolutely fascinating. So it's really cool that you're doing research like that, Sam. I don't know if that would constitute as research or more a thought experiment or a just fun experiment, but that's really cool stuff you're working on, Sam. I think you and I need to just have a chat because you seem to be doing a lot of cool stuff when it comes to the scientific aspect, and I'm fascinated with physics and astronomy and everything like that, but I don't have degrees in this. I'm not an expert in any of these fields. So having you there, who it sounds like you're an expert in the mathematical side of things, at least in the mathematical physics and chemistry, absolutely valuable. So if you are interested in chatting, Sam, hit me up. Definitely reach out to info@endlessfrontierbooks.com and we can have a chat because yeah, you sound like you're very much aligned with my thought processes on things, and I think we could have some really good discussions. But with that, let's move on to the last piece before the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment of this stream. I'm going to be reacting to the Project Hail Mary trailer. I don't know if any of you are interested in that movie coming up, if you've seen the trailers or read the books, but I'm a big fan of the books of the book, and I think this movie looks incredible. It looks accurate, it looks well done, it looks like there were talented people involved, and all the behind the scenes stuff is lending me towards that opinion. Let me see. I think we have a spammer over on the kick side, but what's new? All right, let me know if you guys have any trouble hearing it, seeing it, anything like that. And let's dive into the Project Hail Mary final trailer.
I understand that you think I'm the right person for this mission.
So already we're coming at a very good point in the book. So the big thing we're going to talk about is when Rocky shows up. I have a lot of thoughts on Rocky in this trailer. We'll get to that. But the cinematographer has come out and said that he used different types of film stock for the space scenes versus the Earth scenes to make them feel distinct. A lot rougher stock in space to give it that harder edge and stuff like that. That I just see a very talented person doing incredible work. And this shot here, you're seeing Rocky's ship, which is very much built on Xeon. They talk about Xeon a lot in the book, and this is a great design for it. Andy Weir didn't have any artwork for Rocky's ship, only for Ryland's ship, but this design for it is so alien, but captures the spirit of what the book was going for, that I'm just blown away by this design. I think it looks incredible. But we only get a few teases of it. We definitely didn't see inside as far as I'm aware.
I understand the stakes.
Object approaching.
Dude, these ships look incredible. Yes, this ship that Ryland has looks slightly different than the illustrations in the book, but it's still got the core of it. The illustrations in the books were technical. They weren't artistic. So they got the technical aspects in this and then added an artistic flair to it, and I'm totally fine with that. They were sterile in the books, meant to just show you how the artificial spin gravity was achieved. This ship in the book, it breaks into two pieces. The node, the pointed end that you see on the right, flips around, and they're attached by these long cables, and then they start spinning around each other, around a central point of spin that creates artificial gravity. Because spin gravity is very important. It'll be something that we use in the future of space travel, absolutely. The problem is the scale of it. If he just spun this ship around, or what you see in 2001 A Space Odyssey, you're just going to get nauseous. You're just going to get sick. It's too small of a difference to really matter. but if you can create a big enough scale, a wide enough rotation, you can absolutely achieve it. So the illustrations in the book were just showing you how he achieved that cabling system, that flipping system, and the spirit of those technical drawings are still 100% at play in this design.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct, including us.
Saw a little bit of the tunnel between Ryland's ship and Rocky's ship that looks just like it was described in the book. And talking about casting here, the main two characters are who you see right there. That woman, that Dutch woman, and Ryan Gosling's character, Ryland Grace. This is perfect casting. I'm not usually a huge fan of Ryan Gosling, but Ryland is a genius microbiologist who had incredibly controversial opinions years before the events of the book. This is not important spoiler stuff, chat, but he had very controversial opinions where he was virtually blacklisted from the academic field, and the only job he could get was as a middle school science teacher. And he came to really love that work, really connect with the students and try to inspire them into science. He gets involved with this because it turns out his controversial opinions from back in the day might have been right. That's why he's brought into this, and he becomes an expert in what is threatening the Earth's sun. This is a solar system threatening event. I won't go dive into what is causing the problems with the sun because they don't do it in the trailer, which I think is very important. I won't get into that. But his kind of boyish awkwardness comes across in Ryan Gosling's portrayal very well. He's supposed to be a little bit obtuse in an awkward way. Ryan's pulling it off perfectly. And this Dutch woman here, she's in charge of the UN task force to solve this problem with the sun that's going on. And she's an uber bitch. She does some truly horrific stuff to Ryland and all in service of saving humanity, which, you know, if you're going to do horrific shit, that's a good motive to have or a good goal to have. And this actress is coming across with that single-minded focus very, very well.
Dr. Grace, the world is counting on you.
All right. I want to talk about Rocky here. And just as an aside, the color scheme in this movie looks incredible. They're not choosing basic things. They gave him a red space suit. They made the planet green that we'll see later. His jumpsuit's yellow. There's just color, vibrant, and not to an obnoxious degree. This isn't, whites and grays and sterile beige. They really tried to make an artful film. And that comes across because the directors behind this, I believe one of them worked on Into the Spider-Verse. While I have issues with that story, it is a artful film, and that expertise comes across very well here. The cinematographer from Dune having those stock differences, like I mentioned. So absolutely a whole lot of artistic talent coming into this. But with Rocky, they didn't make Rocky with CGI. I'm sure he's enhanced with CGI and stuff like that. But they made a physical, practical effect puppet for Rocky. And I'm a big proponent of practical effects. I think they make things feel a lot more real. There's that tangible, tactile feel to them that makes anything practical feel more alive than anything CGI, in my opinion. It helps deal with the uncanny valley problem that a lot of CGI deals with. So they made a fully puppetable version of Rocky, which I'm all for. And his design is right in line with what the book was saying. He's supposed to have a lot of limbs. He's supposed to not really have a face, have difficulty articulating his fingers in a way that a human would and everything like that. And this tunnel with the clear stone, they read the book and they cared about the book. As a book fan, I've rarely seen trailers for a movie that I've read the book for that I felt they knew the book, they loved the book, they worked with the writer, and every shot from this film, I get that sense.
No, I'm sorry.
Now, this wasn't exactly in the book, but it's still in line with his character. He's cringe. And there's going to be a lot of cringe dad humor in this movie, and intentionally so. He's just, an awkward guy who's used to trying to make 12-year-olds laugh. And that's what his humor is these days. And that works perfectly with Ryan Gosling's portrayal here. Andy Weir is very good at using humor to undercut his incredibly accurate science. This book, just like The Martian, dives into the equations of everything, the real science of things, the orbital mechanics, the chemistry, the biology, everything like that. It is so in depth, but the humor helps people not get headaches reading it because a lot of people aren't invested in the science to know what's going on, and the humor undercuts that. So having this sequence added in that wasn't in the book, I don't have a problem with, because it might be a more efficient way of showing that humor to help get that relationship between Rocky and Ryland built up, because that is the core of the story, is the relationship between Ryland and Rocky. It's already coming across in the trailer. This is just a funny way to start it. Now, one other thing I want to talk about with Rocky here is there's been some debate among Project Hail Mary book fans about whether or not they should have included Rocky in the trailers. I myself was a little bit conflicted on it as well. If they hadn't shown him, it might have come across as another generic solo adventure film like Spaceman on Netflix with, what's his bucket? Adam Sandler. Just kind of generic. Maybe there's going to be an alien he interacts with. It might come across very generic, but Rocky and his relationship with Ryland is the backbone. So I don't think you could market this film well without including Rocky. But you want to avoid spoilers as well. So they chose to keep what's going on with the sun a secret, make that a spoiler instead. I am conflicted on it. I would have liked to have been surprised with Rocky's design in theaters. However, I get the motivation to making what's going on with the sun the secret and Rocky a trailer reveal. It was probably the best decision they could have made. Would you guys be watching this if you didn't know anything about the books or anything like that? Would you be interested in this without seeing Rocky in the trailer?
I'm Grace. I'm gonna call you Rocky. We're here for the same reason. His son is dying too. If we're gonna save our planets, we have to learn how to communicate.
And that's a big part of the second act, is learning how to communicate. Because Rocky obviously doesn't have vocal cords in the way that a human does. His species actually communicates very similar to music. So that kind of musical tone you heard earlier from him, that's Rocky talking. And they didn't dive in the book. Andy didn't dive into what Rocky's voice sounded like. They're about to a moment here. They have to give him a voice, and having a little bit of a comedic back and forth about picking the way his voice sounds, I think is totally fine.
Check this out. We have about 250 words. Let's find you a voice.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Oh.
Nope.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Try this.
I am Rocky. I like.
So yeah, that little bit wasn't necessarily in the book, but you obviously have to change things. I'm never going to be one who advocates for one-to-one from book to screen, because I recognize that there are differences in the medium, and you've got to make allowances for that. The changes that I'm seeing, the very few changes that I'm seeing, are keeping the humor and the characters and the story intact while making those changes. That's absolutely the best we can hope for. Just like with Lord of the Rings, I believe all of that was kept intact with the changes that Peter Jackson made. I've actually probably not been excited for a film as much as I am for Project Hail Mary since, I don't know, 2017. Like, it's been almost a decade since I've been this excited for something, because this is exactly what I want it to be as a book fan and as a hard science fan.
So I have a new roommate now.
Hi, Grace.
Together, we're pretty smart, but no one's ever done this before.
It is time go.
I think you're being go time, pal.
So I think the music works really well because he has a musical style that he likes, and this is right in line with it. But for non-book fans, I won't tell you what this red mist is, but this red mist is actually pivotal to the plot. And this goes more into what I was saying. It's just this film feels so artistic. It feels beautiful. It's not just going to be a well-written script if they follow the book well. It's going to be a beautiful film. I'm not someone who advocates for needing to see a film in IMAX or anything like that. It's never something that I've prioritized. But with this film, I'm going to find the biggest screen I possibly can, pay the extra few dollars to see this as large as possible because it feels like there's talent in every frame. It feels like there was care and thought put in. And even their Twitter account, the Project Hail Mary Twitter account, is interacting with fans in such positive ways. Even when there's criticism, they react to it very well. I haven't seen a single red flag so far with this film. And as you know, I look for red flags. I I don't believe in a perfect film, and I don't believe this film will be perfect at all. But so far, this marketing campaign is near as perfect as it can be. It's absolutely incredible.
There are infinite possibilities for this to go wrong.
This ship wasn't built for this. Now!
If Grace Rocky saves stars, we can go home.
Some diehards are saying that this is going to be Ryan Gosling's Oscar. I don't believe that. I don't believe this film will even touch the Oscars. I'm worried that it's not going to make a ton of money. I think the ceiling for it is probably 500 million. I'm loving it though. I realize that what I like about it is so incredibly niche that I am worried about its mainstream success, its mainstream popularity. Yes, The Martian was very mainstream popular. I don't know if this is going to be able to achieve that same level, but we'll see. Don't think it's going to be Oscar worthy for Ryan or even talked about in the Oscars, but he'd be in my Oscars if this movie does go well.
I think this is a one-way trip for me.
I will not let Grace die.
I really hope I don't get hit for copyright on that trailer with all that music. But yeah, that's the Project Hail Mary trailer. I know I had already seen it, so that wasn't a fresh reaction from me, but I hope I broke it down in pointing to some stuff in the book that made it interesting for all of you. I'm going to reread the book next month in preparation for this. I am stoked for it. I don't know if anybody else is in the chat, so please let me know in the chat what you guys thought of that trailer. Does it make you want to see the film? Were you already interested in? How do you feel about Project Hail Mary coming out next month? We're getting so very close, and I'm excited. I'm very much excited for it. There are people having opinions on it, you know, who don't know the book that I'm a little concerned about. People are calling it generic because, oh, solo spaceman with weird alien. Yes, that's been done before, but I think everyone should give it a chance because it does it in unique ways, especially with what's going on with the sun. This isn't a science fiction story that's nihilistic, and that's something I talk about all the time. Is nihilism in science fiction is at an all-time high, and I hate that. Nihilistic stories are fine, like your occasional, hey, the Earth is in peril and we have to move to another planet to save the human race. Those stories are great. I love Interstellar, but that happens so often in science fiction these days that a positive story like classic Star Trek with a positive future is incredibly rare. Yes, what's going on in Project Hail Mary is a disaster. What's going on with the sun is horrible. But A, it's not political commentary. It's not talking about global warming or climate change or anything like that. It is an external threat, which is great. And there's so much hope in the film. It never goes, yeah, humans suck, should just let them all die. It's heroism. And heroism, I think, is implicitly positive. This is something that we need in modern sci-fi. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it. Looks like you in the chat are looking forward to it as well. I would recommend the book, especially to you, Sam, because you'd be able to understand the science in it. They do dive into the equation, into the chemistry, to everything's going on, and it's still incredibly scientifically plausible. Not as much as The Martian, even though The Martian actually did have some scientifically implausible things to justify the plot, like the big storm that facilitates the inciting incident at the beginning of The Martian. That's not really possible, a storm of that magnitude, but the rest of the film and book are very scientifically plausible. Same thing is true here. This story, Project Hail Mary, is set in the near future with not faster than light travel, but the capacity to go between solar systems. He's 12 light years away, I believe, for the majority of the story, 12 light years from Earth. Obviously, we're not capable of that right now, but Andy Weir went to such effort to find a interstellar capable technology that was built on real science, and it's really interesting the way he does it. It's entirely unique. His method of getting to another solar system, I've never heard of or seen from another science fiction franchise. And I can't tell you what it is because that would spoil some of the stuff, like what's going on with the sun. But it's fascinating the way he comes up with a practical, never before seen in science fiction method, at least as far as I'm aware. Of course, maybe there's something I missed, but I recommend the book, especially to you, Sam, and I recommend the movie at this point. I'm going to be there day fucking one. Judas asks, have you ever read the book A World Out of Time by Larry Niven? I think you would like it. I haven't read that. I don't know if I've heard of it. I'm actually going to copy that right now and bookmark that because I'm always on the lookout for good books to read. I'm reading The Lost World right now, the Jurassic Park sequel, and I'm really enjoying it. I hate the Lost World movie. I think it's the worst of the original trilogy. I know that's controversial with 3 being a thing, but a lot of what 2 did bothered me. And now that I'm reading the book, it bothers me even more. Because, yes, there was a massive divergence from Jurassic Park book to film, but at least Michael Crichton was involved in that one. A lot of the spirit was intact, and they replaced the things in the book with at least good things. I do now believe that the book is better than the film, but at least the film was still really good. Lost World, I think all the changes that they made a much worse film, and Michael Crichton wasn't involved. So I'm getting through that. I'm not very far into it, maybe about 70 pages into The Lost World, but I'm enjoying what I have gotten so far. I'm going to probably read Artemis next, which is the book that Andy Weir wrote between The Martian and Project Hail Mary. I've never actually read it before, but I want to get to it at least before Project Hail Mary comes out so I can compare when that movie comes out, the full breadth of his career, because he's done The Martian, Artemis, and Project Hail Mary. Those are his only 3 books, and they're incredibly successful. So, but yeah, I'm absolutely looking for more recommendations. It's from the 70s. Oh, that's perfect. I love 70s and 80s sci-fi novels. That was a great era for science fiction books. So that alone sells it to me. Time effects of space travel, etc. Ooh, so they're getting relativity in there, some special relativity. That definitely sounds right up my alley. Ugh, Judas, I love that. Sam, faster than light travel. Is there faster than light travel in a world out of time? Is that what you're saying? Oh, you're asking me just in general what I think about faster than light travel? Faster than light travel has to be done right for me to really get invested in it. I don't like hand wavy ones where they're just like, yeah, we travel faster than light, so what? I really appreciate when someone goes to the effort of justifying it. Like Star Trek. Star Trek does a great job with the warp bubble, the warp technology founded on Acubair White's hypothetical or a theoretical warp model. That's actually the same model I use in my stories, but I go in a lot more practical, a lot closer to what Acubair White was going for in my stories. So it's still different than Star Trek, but going to the effort of saying, hey, it's a wormhole. Hey, it's a warp bubble stretching space and time, something like that I can get behind. But actually going faster than the speed of light, just accelerating that fast, that's going to bother me a lot, Sam, if I ever come across that in a story, because that's based on our current understanding of physics. Going faster than the speed of light isn't possible, because the speed of light, it's incorrectly called the speed of light. It's more aptly called the speed of massless objects, massless things. So anything that doesn't have a mass can go that fast. We, of course, have mass, so achieving those speeds just doesn't seem possible. So faster than light travel has to be done well for me to agree with it. That's why I really like Project Hail Mary. It's not faster than light travel. There is relativity involved, so the 12 light year journey, 12 years pass on Earth, while only 3 years pass for Ryland. And they do other things to help that time pass even better for him. So they do really well in Project Hail Mary. Dash says, have you ever read David Weber's Honorverse? I haven't even heard of that one either. Honorverse sounds a little bit more Science fantasy, though, let me see. I bookmarked that as well. Often compared to C.S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower. That's a good way to get me invested because I love the Hornblower movies and the Hornblower books. I read a few of the books as a kid. That definitely is a good way to get me invested. And James T. Kirk had some similarities with Hornblower as well, often compared to each other there. And yeah, I will definitely check that one out. If you guys have book recommendations for me, absolutely let me know. And on segments of Ride or Flight, I'll review them like I have with Jurassic Park and stuff like that. They won't be in-depth reviews or really something that I could clip out, but I like to talk about whatever fiction I'm going through on the stream. So just that, like I had that little bit about the Lost World, I'll do that for any book that I'm really reading. I'm also reading The Fabric of the Cosmos by Brian Greene. That one I'm going much slower through because that's an actual science book. The section I'm in is still on string theory. String theory is very hard to grasp, and so I'm not going through it at a fast rate like I would do fiction, but I need to get back into it. I haven't read it in a few weeks at this point, but I will occasionally talk about something like that as well. Sam can bypass the compressor and be faster. God, I don't like Star Wars' science. I get it's science fantasy, so I'm willing to make allowances for it, but that's some of the reason why I'm never going to be a diehard Star Wars fan, because they're so fast and loose with the science, and it's way more magic heavy and stuff like that. So even just regular Star Wars, I feel that way. Then you get into the sequel trilogy with, I bypassed the compressor, and nonsense like that. I can't get invested in the world at all. So yeah, Star Wars hyperspace bothers me a little bit because that's not reality in any way, shape, or form. And it's not meant to be, so I can't give the movie or anything like that, the original movies, bad scores if I were actually to score them because of that. It just doesn't appeal to me necessarily. Sam fucking Brian Greene. Are you not a fan of Brian Greene? I've liked a lot of what I've seen from him. He's not a Neil deGrasse Tyson in my opinion. I can't stand Neil deGrasse Tyson. He comes across as a pompous ass, and he's proved wrong half the time. And he helped kill Pluto. He wasn't necessarily responsible, but he did aid in the removal of Pluto, so I still drop that at his doorstep, even though he tries to push off the blame to other places. I can't stand Neil deGrasse Tyson at all. I really like Brian Cox, who's basically the British equivalent of Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I'm always on the lookout for better scientists to follow. I have the Brief History of Space and Time by Stephen Hawking that I'm going to read probably after I get through Brian Greene's book. I have a few other books from scientists in that field. So if you guys have recommendations, I'm sure Sam does as well, for astronomy or physics books along that vein, I'll take those recommendations as well. Absolutely. Judas, me too. He killed Pluto. Yes, he killed Pluto in my opinion. Fuck that guy. I can't stand him. And he's legitimately wrong so often, and when he's not wrong, he's being so pretentious. There are questions that are asked that, you just, answer the question. But he's like, actually, and it's like, that wasn't the point. You're changing the subject. Shut up. Yeah, I can't stand him at all. The string theory stuff is weird. I think string theory is important, and other alternate theories are important, because we do need to find out what the bridge between relativity and quantum physics is. We need a bridge for that, which is what Interstellar was actually all about. String theory just doesn't seem like it's it, though, in my opinion, because to make it work, you have to go to 10 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time, or even farther down that, and that's not anything that we'll ever be able to experiment with in any way, shape, or form. It just feels like, the math didn't work, so they tinkered with it until it kind of almost maybe worked. So string theory is fascinating. I'm still going to research it, finish this chapter, and be, intrigued by it, but I don't think it's the answer that we've all been looking for. Pluto will always be a planet in my opinion. Yes, it will be a planet in my opinion as well. I actually have a video out on this channel, one of the first videos I did since the rebrand, talking about why Pluto is still a planet. I go into the history of Pluto as a planet, its discovery, its redefinition in 2006, what the new definitions of planet are, and just dwarf planets in general. I make the argument that dwarf planets should actually just be considered planets. It's in the fucking name, but they're not actually considered planets to the scientific community, and they're not given the research that is due to them because they're dwarf planets. If gas giants and rocky planets are both considered planets, why can't dwarf planets just be considered a different classification? So yeah, we'll have 15 planets in our solar system instead of 8. So what? And that's actually one of the reasons why they demoted Pluto, is because when they were looking out into the Kuiper belt beyond Pluto, they thought there were going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dwarf planets of similar size out there, and they didn't want kids to have to memorize so many different names. Legitimately, one of the main reasons Pluto was demoted, because scientists at the IUA were worried about school children memorizing planetary names. That is a shitty fucking reason, in my opinion. I'm sorry to get so profane. I'm trying to get away from swearing as much on this channel, but yeah, I get impassioned about it. So you guys, if you are interested in that video, check it out on my YouTube. Pluto is a planet. It is and always will be, in my opinion. I really go into depth on it. So if you're interested in that, please absolutely check it out. Sam, the Pluto thing was so he could do Schmidt. The reason he says he was pushing for it was to clean up his observatory. He didn't want to worry about another planet. And Dr. Rachel, we are pro planet in the sphere? Absolutely. And he has no other work? Yeah, people think he's a genius. I've met people who are like, yeah, I'm a scientist. I listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's the same stuff with Bill Nye, the science guy, is Bill Nye's not actually a scientist. His degree's in engineering. And I still respect his work back in the day. Bill Nye, the science guy, those videos were fun. And they were my generation. So they made science interesting. But he shouldn't be looked to as an expert in anything outside of those videos out and in the current day. So yeah, people are getting I'm just going to say poor role models in the scientific field. And those two are the two biggest role models for everyday people. And God, they don't know what they're talking about. And people making them into role models is all that they have. They're social media presences. They're celebrities. They're not scientists. Justice for Pluto. Yes, absolutely. Goddess. Justice for Pluto. Dashes, and now a lot of school kids can't name the planets we do have. That's true. We've gone away from memorization, almost, at least to a further degree than in the past. But yeah, that's such a dumb reason. Only because of Colbert? Is Colbert responsible for Neil deGrasse Tyson becoming famous? Judas, Bill Mayer handed Neil dumbass Tyson his butt on his show. Did he? Oh, Bill Mayer, I'm conflicted on. I've never watched a ton of his stuff, but some stuff that I have seen has been really good. Some stuff not bad, or has been a little bit bad. So, you know, if he did hand Neil his ass, I would absolutely watch that. That'd be hilarious. Dash, people are not limited to their degrees. Absolutely. That is fair. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't have any degrees. I'm not an expert in anything. So him being limited to his degree shouldn't be a massive thing against him, Bill Nye. At the same time, though, he doesn't do other research to make up for that. So he's made his expertise engineering and then didn't shift his expertise. So I'll say it like that, is his expertise is engineering, and he kept it in engineering besides the superficial level of science that he touts on social media. So you're right. His degree isn't the end-all, be-all, but I do think it is representative of his lack of transition into a more scientific field. But yes, thank you for pointing that out, Dash. You're absolutely correct to call me out on that. All right. Well, I think we're at the hour-and-a-half mark almost. Damn. Hawking's Higgs boson for books to look. I do need to research more into the Higgs boson, just so, you know, I can understand the particle accelerator a little bit more. So that's a great recommendation as well. But we're, at the hour-and-a-half mark almost. I think it's time we dive into the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment of this stream, where you, the chat, with super chats can help me ad-lib, mad-lib, improv, short little stories in the wildest ways possible. It's always a ton of fun. So let's dive into that right after a word from our sponsor, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, My notes were thick, blocked-out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag-and-drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000-word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy-to-understand, trackable project, complete with the series Bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world-building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. And we are back with another Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment of the Write or Flight podcast. I have some music pulled up here. Let me get it connected. So last week when I did the music that I did, it didn't go super well. There was copyright strikes or copyright claims on it, but I think I have a way around that using YouTube's own music system as a workaround. Let me just see if I can get it to work. Of course, it was working earlier, but it's not now. All right. That's work. Might need to just share normal audio. This is a very professional stream chat. You should all, take notes. Take notes from how well I do everything. Right. Yeah, the Creator Music Studio is not coming up anymore in my audio section. All right, I'm just gonna share my music in general. Audio capture. Alright, you should be able to hear it now, chat. Let me know how that volume is, and we'll work from there. So yes, the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment of this stream is where you, the chat, with a combination of super chats and dice rolls, will help me form a little short story that we do for fun here. So high super chat starting at $1 can override any dice roll that picks the genre, lead character, setting, theme style, or wild card, and high super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist at any point during this process. So I could be nearly done with a story and you say, hey, I want Godzilla to show up and eat all but the sexy women on Earth, and I have to figure out how to make that work in the story. You can absolutely do that, and it's just a fun little aside, little writing exercise. If this stream gets up to $100 in revenue from Twitch subscriptions, which count towards dice rolls, overcoming and stuff like that, or stream element donations, which the link to that is pinned on the YouTube side, or of course YouTube super chats, if that reaches $100, we'll schedule a separate stream called The Story Forge, where I will actually write out this short story, and my incredible wife in the chat, Dr. Rachel, will draw out some exclusive artwork for it. The last Story Forge short story, Zombie Riggers, is now available for all YouTube members to read in its entirety, including the previous Story Forge short stories as well. The artwork for Zombie Riggers will probably be out tomorrow, if not the day after that, for members of the YouTube side as well. Sam says, Neil, fuck the audio. Yeah, Neil's just trying to ruin my life because I said he's an asshole. God, I really can't stand that man. But YouTube seems to think, hey, you like science. You want to watch everything Neil has ever done. I get recommended Neil stuff constantly. Every day I have to scroll past a Neil video that YouTube wants me to do. Yes, Riggers, Sam, the people of oil. It was really fun to write that short story. So if you guys are interested, definitely check that out. And let me know how the music is working. It's quiet right now just because it's in a lull in the track. But this is YouTube's own creator music stuff that they gave me the licenses for. So I should not have any copyright issues with them. Let me turn it down a little bit because that is a little bit louder than I'd like. But yeah, let me know how the volume works. Rachel, I'm working on the artwork from last week now. Should be ready early tomorrow. Perfect. Yep, and the artwork's really good. I've been seeing it as it gets developed. I think you'll all enjoy it quite a bit. Dash, the algorithm is probably tracking every mention of Neil to shape our feeds. Probably. He's definitely got a hand up his ass. Don't want to get into politics, but yeah, the type of politicians that are shaping science in negative ways, no matter what political party or anything like that, they probably have a say in what he does. But let's dive into it. So we're going to start off with a dice roll to determine if we get a science fiction story, a fantasy story, mystery thriller, romance, parody, or chat choice. And for the chat choices, those are free spaces. You guys can just drop in the chat what you want to have be that dice roll, and you don't need to send super chats for that one. That's just a free space for that. Let's see what the dice has in store for us today. 3. Another mystery thriller. These are always a little bit harder for me. All right, lead character. We have bounty hunter, model, narcoleptic, chivalrous knight, pimp, or chat choice. Let's see what we have in store for us. Come on. Be nice. Be nice. A chivalrous knight in a mystery? Okay, that's weird. That's definitely weird. Setting. We have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, or chat choice. If you, the chat, don't like any of these, of course, high super chat starting at $1 can override any of these dice rolls. Let's see what we have for the setting. 6. All right, chat choice. So that is a free space. Whatever you guys want to be the setting for this mystery about a knight, just drop it in the chat. And if there's a consensus, we'll go with the consensus. If not, super chats can override whatever's going on in the chat still. All right, for theme and style, we have Christmas, Hallmark, redemption, bravery, corruption, and chat choice. 3. Redemption, a mystery about a knight in an unknown setting with a theme of redemption. A brothel, Sam? Add in a brothel somewhere as the setting. Or we can make it take place in a brothel. That'll be funny. That'll be funny. All right, wild card. We have Toad, Gold, Unicorn, Balloons, Robot, or Chat Choice. Should have added Neil deGrasse Tyson into it. Chat choice. So for this one, chat, it can be literally anything. It doesn't have to be one of these wild cards. Just the most random thing you guys can think of will be the wild card. So if you want in this brothel, pick a time frame, chat. We'll have it in a brothel since there's some consensus on both Dash and Sam saying a brothel. But give me a time zone too. Like, is this medieval, something like that? Or is it a present day night in a brothel, in a mystery? And we can, I don't think wildcard could be a person like Neil. But if we want to add in Neil into the story, I think we do that. That might need to be a super chat though, because he's not really a wild card, but making him a dead prostitute that our chivalrous knight needs to investigate the death of, that could be really funny. Or the redemption aspect of it, maybe the knight's caught in a brothel and has to make amends, because I'm guessing a brothel is against the chivalrous code or the knight's code. I'm not an expert on knights though. That might not be true. All right, let's start copying these over. So this is going to be a mystery or thriller. Mystery is definitely the easier one of those to pull off. We got mystery, The lead character is a knight in shining armor. Wild card should be Pluto. Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one, Rachel. Oh, no. I can't even read that out, Sam. Oh. Alright, and then this is this setting is a brothel. Still need to know what time zone. If this is, you know, medieval time, present day brothel or something like that. But we'll go with a brothel. I can't read that, Sam. Alright, and there's going to be redemption as part of it. Redemption. And the wild card is chat choice. Alright, mystery thriller, chivalrous knight, a brothel, redemption, and Pluto or Neil deGrasse Tyson seems to be what you guys are going for. Or a oil rigger. I'm trying to be careful. Judas says if he was a Templar Knight, he would be a monk too and should not be in a brothel. Yeah, that's why he would need redemption, yeah. Just getting random phone calls. The spam is ridiculous these days. But yeah, if he was a Templar Knight, he would need redemption. So that'll fit in very, very nicely. We're gonna do Pluto or Neil for the wild card, chat, and what time frame. I want Neil to be involved somehow. I think that would be funny. Maybe the knight goes there, turns out the prostitute is Neil, and he freaks out, gets caught there, has to redeem himself. Yeah, Neil's calling me. He's like, "Hey man, you're spreading lies about me." Pluto's redemption. Ooh. A knight catches Neil in a brothel, or just a regular dude, and he is a chivalrous knight by making Neil redeem Pluto. That's good. That would have to be a present day one, a present day brothel, but I think we could make that work. We could absolutely make that work. And chivalrous knight, I don't know how we want to do. If we do Knights Templar, something like that, maybe he could be outside the brothel handing out Jesus loves you pamphlets to all the hookers. And that's how he's a chivalrous knight. God. What are we thinking, chat? I'm kind of liking this story. Just waiting for comments to roll in. Yeah, maybe I get sued by Neil deGrasse Tyson if I portray him in a brothel. There are Knight's Orders in the present day, Judas? Really? Okay. So it's not too out there to say that it's a present day story. Yeah, I keep getting these spam calls. I'm wondering if it is Neil pissed off at me. That'd be alright. I'd accept it. So it can be present day. What are we thinking, chat? What are we thinking? Mystery, Knight, a brothel, redemption, and the wild card, Knights of Columbus. That'll go over well. Alright, I'm gonna put Pluto / Neil here for the moment. What do you guys think of that? It's gonna be a short one. That's just one scene, really. But a chivalrous knight trying to save the brothel, the prostitutes, and he catches Neil there, and Neil, his community service is restoring Pluto. Gonna be a very short story. Don't know what the mystery element is though. How do we add in the mystery thriller element to that story? I don't want to go full dead prostitute. YouTube's gonna love reacting their sniffers to me saying dead prostitute so many times. Knight makes fun of Neil for being a retard and needs redemption. I say. Yeah, I wonder if chivalrous knights are allowed to say retard, and he has to go do penance. Story starts with, "Bless me, Father, I have sinned," and he's, just in full knight in shining armor inside of the confession booth, and it's then it's one day earlier, and it's him outside of the brothel. But it does sound like we're going present day, chat, so unless anyone wants to override that, we'll go with a brothel in the present. I kind of like that idea as the night, the story starts with the night at confession. Legally distinct, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Ooh, that's a good one. Don't tell YouTube about the movie Dirty Work then. I might need to check out Dirty Work then. Alright, so we have a framing device. We have the confession. The mystery Neil is a puppet. Ooh. So, confession. Knight trying to help prostitutes catches Neil. And when the knight is trying to, coax redemption out of Neil, Neil is acting really squirrely, like he has people to answer to, and it becomes a little bit of a witness protection program type thing where they need to protect Neil while they figure out whose hand's up his ass. And it ends with the redemption of Pluto and the revelation of Neil deGrafe's allegiances. Plutonians puppet Neil to downgrade their planet and avoid scrutiny. Just people obfuscate. Kills prostitutes by talking to them. Sam. Wow. YouTube is going to love this stream. How do you guys feel about this story so far? So, confession, Knight catches Neil at a brothel. Turns out there are people puppeting him, and the mystery is trying to solve who's got his hand up Neil's ass. And we redeem Pluto in the end. But Neil doesn't get redeemed. Yeah, I don't want to redeem Neil. I was not expecting a Neil deGrasse Tyson hate stream. Neil works for the Order? For the Night Order? Huh. Can you elaborate on that, Sam? How would we make that work? Judas likes what we got so far, so yeah, we'll go with what we have for right now. Confession. We still have time for the twist, Sam, with the Neil working for the Order, so it's not too late to clarify some things there. But confession, Night of Secret Order at confession. Bless me, Father. One day. We'll go 1 week just to give ourselves time. 1 week earlier. Missionary work. We'll call it missionary work. Yeah, no redemption for Neil. No redemption. Night outside a Vegas brothel, handing out Jesus loves you pamphlets to hookers. It's kind of ballsy. It is ballsy to go to a brothel and hand out Jesus love you pamphlets. Like, you gotta respect the cojones on this dude. He's laughed at, mocked, bouncers ignore him because he is respectful and keeps his distance. Yeah, there's nothing they can do, so he's, you know, keeping within the bounds of the law. Just gonna add in a little comedic bit. A drunk prostitute. Alright. Do we want a dead prostitute here? Is Neil getting in trouble for just going to the brothel? Or is there a situation going on? What we could have is Neil comes in looking very disheveled, and then there's the discovery of the dead hooker, and he's being framed for it because he can't handle the lies anymore, and his handlers are not maybe blackmailing him, or will expose this to get rid of him, to silence him. How do we feel about that? And that being the instigator, the mystery. I don't know why the knight would be involved, though. This is more detective work. And that does imply a redemption for Neil. I guess redemption for Neil does make more sense in this context. Do I go with my personal bias or what's right for the story? Always a hard choice. I think I'm going to go with that he's getting framed for the death of a hooker. Neil makes fun of Knight, probably. You can have that. For sure, bias. Alright, we'll try to make him still an asshole. Alright. Neil DeGrift. I like that name change you had. Let me see what you had earlier. Just Neil DeGrift. Oh, and you used an A. We'll just do Neil DeGrift. That'll work. Alright, Neil DeGrift goes up, mocks Knight, gives atheism lecture, and then Knight pins the murder on it. Alright. Atheism lecture. Drunk and dish out. Neil goes into the brothel. Alright. I think we're still making a sound story here. Goes into the brothel. We'll have the reveal. Correct that. Goes into the brothel. Knight continues his work for a while. There's a scuffle that the Knight investigate just a drunk John getting thrown out. When he returns to his corner, there are a few men walking away from Neil's car. Because I'm thinking that the body's going to be found in his car, and that might be the easiest way. There we go. Neil stumbles out, drunk and upset. Says stuff about the world never giving him anything. The real killer was Will Nye all along. That's a good one. That's a good one. Alright, says stuff about the world never giving him anything. Turn up this song a little bit. This one's pretty quiet. The world never gives him anything. Their remark at night. Alright, Neil opens the car and screams. There's a dead hooker in it. He's freaking out, worried that the Knight will call the cops. Knight remembers the men at Neil's car. Believes he's innocent. Judas, Neil's upset because his rocket failed to launch. I'm actually going to include that. Alright. Alcohol's fault. I like that. His rocket failed to launch. Can't move the body. Neil and Knight walk around a corner to figure out what to do. Neil is acting scared. Won't say much. Knight puts it together as obvious. A no-name scientist kills Pluto, then becomes spokesman for modern science. Knight kills him for the crime and later revealed he didn't kill the prostitute. This is a chivalrous knight, so I'm gonna have him be a good guy, but that would be really funny too. I'm just gonna have Neil ask for more money. I don't think I'm gonna have him be, you know, tortured with the lies. He just asked for more money. There we go. I can spell, I swear. Car is gone, but the message is clear. Fall in line, or he's finished. Will Nye used his mechanical engineering degree to build robo armor and fights the knight. Alright. We're gonna go with help. Knight believes it's his duty to fight evil. Agrees to help Neil to expose corruption. Neil's just covering his ass. How can we include Will Nye? Alright, to Knight's order. Still struggling. No, don't help him. It's hard with the chivalrous knight as the main character, and I think I'm losing the redemption aspect of it without Neil becoming a better person. Ugh. Maybe he can beat up Neil here for what he did, and he's gonna go solo, and then he's repenting because he beat up Neil. Neil refuses to help. We can go with this. Neil refuses to help. Knight gets angry. Neil hurt the modern world for greed and won't redeem himself with the opportunity. Knight beats the crap out of him. That better? Sam? We'll go with mission. Leaves him bloody, drunk, and scared in an alley. Alright, we've got to figure out who's behind this. With a longer story, we could dive into the mystery and uncovering the clues a little bit better, but I'm going to go a little cliche. Goes to Knight Order, hacks into Neil's financials, and tracks down his benefactors. All right. Still struggling with the redemption aspect of it. Tracks down his benefactors. Order goes armed to confront them. Politician hanging out at party. Used Neil, and this is full conspiracy theory territory, but it's fun. Will Nye. And people like them. To make science be whatever made them the most money. Gala coming up to, you know, celebrate what's something that Neil would be involved in. New Science Foundation. Benefactors. All there. Gala. What's the conspiracy theory here, Dash? I just mean that it's not provable. This is all just hypothetical. Alright, goes armed to confront them. Neil is there. Order muscles those responsible. And Neil into another room. Should Neil and Will be in love? Jesus. Another room. Demands a confession to the cameras they brought. Politicians threaten, but Knights unafraid. Fixed corruption many times before. Neil playing innocent despite injuries. He's their good boy again. I need to find the redemption angle. Yeah, what the fuck is this redemption? Yeah, I'm having trouble finding a way to fit it in, because the Knight beating up Neil isn't really something that's setting up redemption. And Neil, the only thing I could think of for redemption is Neil coming clean. And none of us want that. But it fits with the bullet points the best. Knight talks to Neil, reminds him of the dead hooker. Mentions years of lies corrupting him. Speech to Neil's humanity. Yeah, Neil has to be a better person at the end, Judas. I have to do it. I have to do it. Alright, where are we? This is halfway through. Fine. Knights agree to pay Neil more than the politicians. And his legal fees. He'll be much richer and happier having done the right thing. Neil confesses and points fingers as proof and dirt on everyone. Knight admits its redemption of a source. Will Nye did say sex is a spectrum. That's true, Dash. Make this in its own section and have chapter 4 be the epilogue. Neil is reminding me of Igor Karkaroff. Yeah, it's kind of a similar thing. Alright, and then the epilogue. Scandal swept through science. Neil's contributions revoked. Pluto restored as a planet. Science back on track for truth, not profit. Knights remain in the shadows, ready for when they can help again. Goes a little superhero here at the end. Neil goes to prison despite legal fees paid. Decades of fraud. The music is right for the mood? Hell yeah, it worked out. Alright, Neil goes to prison despite legal fees paid. Decades of fraud. Will Nye and him share a prison cell. They fall in love. Their love makes them better people. Knight wrapping up confession. Committed crimes to achieve this end. We'll add that into the next one, actually. Pluto smashes into Earth for revenge. Leon Tusk gets all credit from Pluto's restoration. Be funny. Their love makes them better people. They get out of prison. They live quietly and happily, causing no more trouble. Alright, the knight committed crimes to achieve this end. Reese absolves him for the greater good. Alright, Pluto smashes into Earth, Leon Tusk. How could I get Leon Tusk involved? We're gonna say, science back on track. Leon Tusk fills void, and people start listening to his true science more. There we go. That's a good ending for them, Judas. I'm going to add in that. They're running a Quate B&B. This is not how I expected the story to go. So I got the redemption of Pluto in there, and I gave Neil some redemption while still making fun of him. So I think I rode that line between making fun of him but still getting the redemption. So right now we have the story told through the lens of this knight confessing to a priest. He was doing missionary work outside of a brothel when Neil deGriff showed up, drunk, mumbling about how the world never gave him shit, goes into the brothel. The knight is distracted real quick with something else going on, intentionally so. Didn't explain that, but yes, that was the distraction. So people could put a dead hooker in Neil's car. Neil comes out, freaking out, ends up kind of telling the knight what's going on. But when they go back to the car and the hooker are missing. So it's just a statement. It is Neil's handlers who have been forcing him or paying him to say whatever science is most profitable to them. Fact, they're just saying, hey, we're not going to pay you more, but we're not we're not turning you into the cops yet. They're blackmailing him to keep his mouth shut, basically. Well, that's not good enough for the knight. He tries to convince Neil to be a better person, doesn't work, so he beats the shit out of him. The knight leaves Neil and starts an investigation into the handlers of Neil deGriff, figuring out who's paying him, when they're going to be all together, getting a little bit of proof on them. They go to this gala to confront these politicians and people who are puppeting Neil. They're not going to confess. They're threatening everything. But the knight convinces Neil to confess in exchange for more money. So yeah, he's still being a piece of shit. And that's enough for these politicians to be prosecuted. And all these things that they had Neil and Will Nye say and do in the realm of science were undone. So Pluto was restored as a planet. Alas, the faux redemption that Neil had wasn't enough to keep him out of jail. Him and Will Nye went to jail together, fell in love in prison, dropping the soap on purpose for each other before falling in love. And when they left prison, when they got out, they moved to the Catskills, started a nice little B&B, and lived quietly, happily, doing no more harm. And the knights are ready for when they can help save the world again, restore truth to our society. That is the story we have created for this week's Chat Choose Your Own adventure. All right, how does everybody feel about that? Did we make a story worth writing? I still think we made a sound story. That's always my goal, is no matter how crazy the dice rolls are, I always try to make a story that makes cohesive sense. And with more time, I would have developed the mystery aspect a little bit more, go into how the Templars found out the Knights found out the information that they did. But under these circumstances, I felt like we made a relatively sound story while accomplishing the little poking fun humor at Neil and Bill Nye that we wanted to, but with a good story. Brokeback Crater. Oh, that's a good title for it, Weasel. That's a really good title for it. But it doesn't look like you guys want me to make a separate story forge for this story. So we'll move on, make another crazy thing next week, and see if you guys want to make that story a reality. For now, though, we are going to wrap things up for this Chat Choose Your Own Adventure and the Writer Flight podcast. Thank you all for watching. I think we had some really good discussions with the new segment, and the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure was fun as always. Thank you all for watching, whether or not it was on the YouTube side or the Kick side. Sam says the twist Pluto could be the prostitute. That would be funny. Thank you to Dash, Judas, Weasel, Sam, Legatus, Dr. Rachel, and everybody else for chatting or lurking. I appreciate you all, but that's all that I have for today. If you enjoyed this stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. I will be back tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, playing some Jump Space with Adam the Renaissance Nerd in classic split-screen fashion. So if you're interested in that, tune in then. And then this Thursday, Starfleet Academy Episode 6 review will be coming up as soon as I get a chance. Until then, have a stellar day and stay curious.